All right, fellers, we're rolling.
Wow, excellent.
Oh, it feels good to finally sit down.
Yeah, it's been a long day for you, bud.
Yesterday and today has been a long day for me.
You got the bulk of the workload.
Yep. What'd you guys think of the St Huberts trial?
I'm pleased. I think I looked at it with a pretty critical eye, and I'm really happy. A lot of smiling faces, a lot of cajoling. I'm pretty pumped up with pride at the moment, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Jake, what was your impression? Because this is both of our first impression. We didn't come to the one last year, the first inaugural one.
Yeah, so it was interesting to me because it was kind of leading up to it, and Grayson sent me kind of what the ground rules were and giving me the heads up on how it would be judged. And so it's been sitting in the back of my mind for weeks on just how can I take the skill set I have as a NAVDA judge and apply it to this without trying to judge it like a NAVDA test. And so it was really neat coming down. I think I was able to do that, I believe. But it was fun to just take this as what it was designed to be. An application of hunting dogs out there, even though they're at different levels, it was still supposed to be viewed as you're taking, or actually a handler and dog is taking you on a hunt.
Yeah.
And just kind of see. Look, we all know, we've all trialed dogs, we've all tested dogs, and we know that none of those things are exactly like hunting. And things don't happen in a perfect way in hunting. And letting that happen and being able to just kind of let it roll off my shoulders rather than be super critical of it, to me that was the cool part of it, is that it had a great camaraderie, a great feel the whole time we were out here, and it just was. It was a smile on everybody's face and really enjoyable.
That's just it. When Grayson called and initially brought up the idea of me, judging the hunters class, I'm to your point, it's just like all these organizations, all these tests, trials, what have you. It's like there's always somebody like, well, that's not a realistic hunting thing. And it's like different organizations get as close as they can. You cannot perfectly simulate it. But then you take something like this, it's like, well, is everybody really going to show up and in the spirit of it, do it just to have fun? Like, can the people in the community still just show up and let just running the bird dogs in the field be the fun without having to get a title or put something on paper? Yeah. And I can say I was pleasantly surprised. Everybody that showed up seemed to come with the understanding, the shared understanding that this was just for fun. And while we still kind of put winners or champions, whatever you want to call it, at the end of the day, it was essentially a Stanley Cup prize instead of like an actual paper prize.
A knockoff Stanley Cup.
And what I loved about it, so you had a lot more dogs than me both days, and so especially yesterday, I got to go just hang out with all the people that had come back from your course, and then people that were still going out. And it just didn't have that typical trial feel. It had this approachability to it. It had a camaraderie to it, which I know was the goal of it. And I think you were successful in that goal because everybody was encouraging each other. Everybody's wishing the next guy good luck. And there's a lot of trial formats where even when people say it, they don't mean it.
Right.
And I feel like that was the idea. I feel like it was, we started by cultivating that with all the promotion. It was like, hey man, don't show up to this thing if you're wanting a ribbon to hang on the wall. Mm-hmm. And hey, if you're going to be salty about your score, like that's not cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, hey, we're here, that the competition side of this thing is secondary to the event. It's the fellowship, it's the hanging out, it's the getting to know one another, it's the pushing the ball forward in terms of what we expect from our community, and really the bringing people together from different areas, different subsects of our culture. And I think we accomplished that. I really do feel like that was a win for that.
I had plenty of time to think while I was out there walking all day today, right? And the word that it kept just coming into mind. I'm like, man, this has been a fun couple days. I've gotten to meet a lot of people from all over. We had one guy from Maryland, another from New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia. Like, it wasn't just Southeastern or Carolina boys, right? we had people from all over, and the word that kept coming to mind was just refreshing. Like it was a group of people from all over, pointer guys and some flushing guys, come together and just let the action of just spending a day afield with good people and good dogs just kind of take over. And it really just felt like a more organized just training day almost, to where everybody just hangs out afterwards and it's like, oh, my time to go run, let's go do that. And then they're just as content to hang out by the trucks and, have a couple beers.
Yeah, knock the nerves off.
Yeah.
It felt like a mock test almost, and I'm cool with that. Like I don't want, I want people to be proud if they won, and but at the end of the day, and I think another part of that was giving you guys the freedom and the latitude to be the final authority. Like there's a rule set to follow, but at the end of the day, I want you to interpret it the way you want to interpret it, and I want you to make it your own thing. And I think all the judges did a good job with that.
Yeah. I know I used my discretionary freedom, if you will, just to kind of set the tone in the hunters class. But I think that just the questions from the judge asking, it's like it engaged the handler and dog owner in a way that I haven't really seen in another format, to where, there was conversation back and forth, and it just kind of broke that wall while we were out there doing the whole thing. So everybody's 20-minute run, I was asking questions, and it was a back and forth dialogue the entire time. And I told you, Grayson, that was kind of like how you hunt. When you hunt with a buddy, you're always running your mouth. You're always jaw jacking with each other. And it's like, can you pay attention to your dog in the field while you enjoy the socialization of upland hunting?
Right. And I mean, and that was one of the things you gave us as a guideline, is like, we're looking for the dog you want to throw in your truck, and the person that you want to hunt with next weekend. And that's it. Normally I don't engage in conversation too heavily when I'm judging, and I kind of actually tried to actively do it in this venue, because I wanted the handlers that were out there to forget that it was a test or a trial, that it was indeed, you and I are going hunting. Let's let your dog rock. Let's see what happens, and we'll handle things as they come. But
it was fun. I mean, it really was. I enjoyed every part of it that I participated in, whether I was planning for somebody, because it was, and I'm always rooting for people wherever I go. Like, I'm always excited to see somebody succeed. But this one even more, like just watching the runs, you were just like, it was more pleasurable to watch from afar, because you knew what was going on with people. They weren't, hopefully, just super nervous, dialed in, focused, and worried to death that their dog was going to make a misstep. That it was just like, hey, man.
And I had a few people that it was the first thing they'd ever done with their dog, was coming here and doing this. And if this continues to get to build, I think that's it, right? Like, get hunters that just finished their season or are coming off their season, and they go out this, and they don't have the feel of being at a trial. They have the feel of, okay, it's the last day of hunting season, and go out there and do it, and have it be approachable for somebody that's intimidated by field trials and intimidated by hunt tests, and to come out here and be able to go, okay, this is much cooler. I feel like I'm out here with my buddies. I feel like not every single person's either wishing I do bad or judging me, and I think he accomplished it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a few people, same thing. This is my first dog event ever. I mean, one guy, like, he was telling me today, he had a nice little setter, man. It was fun watching. I mean, you can't beat a setter running up on the hill in the open field like we had today on my course. But he was telling me, like, essentially he owns and operates a preserve, and this dog has never been off that preserve. And he was like, I just wanted to see what else was out there. I've never run a test or trial. I figured this was a great kind of entry standpoint. And he's like, it's a lot of fun. I mean, just coming out here, there's no pressure to do anything. And there's a few people that kind of said, I know this is kind of a broad statement or general statement, but they're like, I haven't been to a trial or test of any organization to where I haven't felt some sort of politics or drama of some sort. And they just, again, it goes back to that word, just refreshing. Like,
Yeah. And I mean, I think it really helped. You know, and I worry about this moving forward because the whole idea is I've wanted to kind of remove myself from the process. But I think the best thing I did was take the people that I thought would fit the roles the best and put them in those situations. And that was, so when Jim and Terry Ann, logistically they can do stuff, and no matter what level of stress they're feeling, they're not dropping that on everybody. They're not making a big show of it or whatever. So everything ran seamlessly. But of course there's a simplicity, I think, to this test too. It's like, hey, it's a bird planner and the judge, and you don't need a bunch of support if everything's going smooth, and if it's not, somebody's there to help.
Yeah.
And then the judges, you guys did a good job making everybody feel at ease and just recognize that, hey, you're not here. This is here. We're here to have fun together. The celebration first, the competition is just a little sidebar.
Maybe it's worthy of saying real quick. Like we haven't really discussed it yet, but the approach to this was that you come up to the line with your dog. You're given a little bit of safety instruction. There's going to be several birds on the course. You're basically given the boundaries of your course and say, go ahead, hunt it like you would hunt it. Approach the course how you would approach it. You're shooting your own birds. You're making all those decisions out there. So it's not a judge telling you go left, go right, let's come down this. And so I think people, once if they did have a little initial nerves, they settled in and they were able to, and you could see it paired well with people that are actual hunters, because the actual hunters go, all right, I got my wind coming out of here. I see my likely cover there. I'm going to walk this way. I'm going to let my dog come out and hit the objectives. So it wasn't, you weren't out there with 2 gunners and 4 judges and a gallery. Like it was a lot like you and your buddy going hunting.
And I think, for you in the trialers class, I mean, most of the folks running for you were experienced enough that and I don't know this. I didn't really get to walk any of them with you, but I assume that they're people that their approach to the course is going to have some education behind it. They've got some experience, and I got to see, especially in the Flushing course, some folks that this was, even the hunting side of them was new to them, and they were getting into it, and so they didn't have. And then the level of improvement from day 1 to day 2, they learned something in the process. They got some feedback from the judge, and they made adjustments, and it stuck, and it was cool, and they walked away happy because of it. They didn't get their feelings hurt. That didn't go perfect for them,
Well, I mean, I saw a couple handlers like brand new yesterday. They ran again today. You could see the level of improvement and comfort overall just from yesterday to today, and that not only reflected in themselves, but it reflected in their dogs. And to your point, Jake, is like right out of the gate, it's like I don't know how you handled your questions. If you waited till the end and just kind of rapid fire hit them, I started right out of the gate. I mean, as soon as we said go, I'm hitting them. Like yesterday and today, the initial question was something related to shotguns. Very easy, just kind of tell me why you chose the ammo that you chose. And then today it was just like, give me the 5 basic choke sizes. Right. Like simple stuff, but it gets the dialogue rolling.
Which is so similar to a day of hunting again.
Right.
Like, how many times we're leaving the trucks and I'm like, what choke tubes are you running today?
Why are you running a turkey choke?
TSS, are you made of money?
It's like and I mean the shot size. It's like, what size load are you using? Stuff like that. And it just really created that level. And one thing I appreciated is I don't think that, I mean, between the 3 courses yesterday and today, so that's 6 winners and runner-ups each day, I don't think that anybody really repeated in either class. Like I had a different set of winners yesterday and a different set of winners today.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that makes me happy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I mean, consistency matters, but I think people got to show up, like you said, they got to show up, make their improvements, and then improve their situation and position.
And for us, like the hunter and the triad class, we switched courses. So you gave the opportunity to a guy that maybe hunts more open fields and prairies to show his dog off on day 1 or day 2, depending on which class you were on, versus the guy that's more woodcock, quail, savannas, lowland, and get to show that off. So it gave a mixed opportunity to the dogs.
Absolutely. And it's like today, I mean, I got numerous opportunities to see how dogs handled sighted birds as opposed to just scented birds in the thicker cover yesterday, right? And I had a few people, a little hesitant of it this morning or yesterday. They're like, that's pretty open, sparse cover out there in the field. And I'm like, hey, we talk all the time about dogs hunt to cover, right? Like yesterday you got to show it off in the thicker pine savanna, and then today you're doing it in the wide open. I want to see the dog expand. I want to see how you guys approach objectives and stuff like that. Exactly how you're going to do when hunting.
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of came through. And to be perfectly honest, when I saw that I had 12 dogs yesterday and 12 dogs today, and I'm in the hunter's class, right? I'm sitting here like, all right, I hope I don't come to this thing and I get like 1 or 2 quality dogs that I personally enjoy watching, right? I'm like, it's going to make for a long day on that. Yeah. I can truly, honestly say that I saw different characteristics in every single dog that I could make a reason why I would put that dog in my truck. Like every single dog. And I can't say another training day event that I could claim that. I mean, nothing that comes to my mind on that.
And my hope is that some of that came through because the dogs were feeling relaxed as well and having fun, And I watched your course, and I mean, it wasn't all pretty.
No.
But it also wasn't a melee for the most part.
Right.
But I really enjoyed it. I got to watch your runner-up, Sprig, with Connor. Mm-hmm. And it just that there was a real freedom about that run. And he had a big chase in there at one point in time. But then, what I love about Connor is I could see it play out from the hillside, and Connor's like here, and the dog didn't turn, and then he continued his chase, and Connor just was like, okay, and then we'll just chat for a little bit, and then the dog came back and went back to work, and it wasn't like a big freak out because my dog's chasing birds and I got to scream and chase him and run. Sprig got to have his fun. Sprig is a hammer.
Yeah.
And he got to do it, and then he went right back to work. And
well, it was funny. I mean, he was the runner up on my course today, just because, like, to your point, like when he spoke to the dog, he didn't repeat himself. He wasn't hacking the dog. He wasn't loud. He spoke only when was required, and that goes a long way with me. It was just a pleasant day in the field. The dog did solid, had different examples of what was good, and this could have been better, that could have been better, whatever. But then the guy that ended up winning, it was like almost an identical feeling run. And the thing that broke it apart was the guy that won got all 4 of my questions right, and Sprig's owner got, I think, 1 right. So
it's awesome. But I mean, yeah, it was interesting. I'm glad I got to plant for you for that reason, just to watch that, and then to get to hang out a little bit on the Flushing course. But I mean, I feel like the vibe carried into the competition where everybody seemed, and a couple of my clients were here that are, and I love them. They're dear friends of mine, and they get the worst nerves before hunt tests. So they've been running NAVDA stuff, and they get so nerved up. And they both ran under Jake today, and I'm sure they probably appeared more nervous than maybe others. But at the same time, for their baseline, they were like levels lower.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, it was neat having the freedom to get to set my courses up how I wanted. And I was a little nervous, especially on day 1, with how I went out there and chose to do it. Because I kind of went out there and I got here early, I walked my field, and I started saying, like, if I was gonna set this up for me to bring one of my dogs out and have fun with, how would I do it?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, I threw a bird right down by the edge of the water. You had the opportunity to take it over the water if you wanted to. I planted doubles on the course because, these are trial dogs, and I want to see both how handler and dog handle stuff like that. And you can play it safe, or you can take a risk and you can show your dog off. And it kind of gave the opportunity for you to see stuff that happens in hunting that is it is generally, I tried to do it in the most unchoreographed way that I could, but make it be kind of spontaneous, kind of throws people for a little bit of a loop, and just see how they handled it. I mean, almost every hunt test or trial I've been to, it is so predictable where you're going to find the birds. It's like, it was neat to get the freedom to do that, and it was rewarding to then have several people comment that they thought that was cool versus like, I can't believe you put 2 birds in one spot and gave my dog I mean, people thought it was neat. They thought it was cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like I've had training days with other people to where it's like even just the training days, like they don't want to do something like a covey bird. And it's like, why are you training your hunting dog if it's not to set up actual realistic hunting scenarios? And so like I was able, same thing as you, to throw a couple curveballs at them yesterday and today, and everybody took it into stride. Like I had one section set up today with a covey bird, and literally only one person really got to play that covey bird. Everybody else blew it up one other way, shape or form, but they all came away laughing or smiling about it. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know it was a covey bird," and I'm like, "Yeah." But what really struck me is the spirit of the event didn't change. They could have all come back to the parking lot, could have told everybody some of the questions we were asking, could have told everybody that the location 3 and 4, they're covey bird up. They could have ruined it for everybody else, but they're like, no, I want to keep this. I want to keep the spirit of it going, and it was just, again, refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm super proud of the event. So now
Well,
it's just
it was kind of your baby. You wanted to bring something different to the bird dog world. What was it about this event that you're like, hey, I'm going to try something different. We'll see if it sticks. It's a little esoteric. It's more UK or French based, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's Europe. I mean, it's run throughout the continent, but it started in France. And I just happened, like I was running a trial on woodcock. What was that? Like 3 years ago, we did that down there, Jack. You didn't go to that one, did you?
To the wild on woodcock?
Yeah.
No, I wasn't there.
No, and that's I think 3 or 4 years ago, and we had a Danish judge, and he was a like multi-time world champion of this trial, and he was like, I love the dogs, I love the trialing, I love judging because my passion is the St Huberts trial. That's the thing I get up for, and so I listened to him talk about it, and he's a hunter, and he's like, it's a different vibe. It's a different thing. And so I did some research but it was always, and his name is Paul Nielsen. And he's just a really pleasant guy, but he kind of talked me into it. And so I was like, man, I'm just going to, if nothing else, I'm going to whip one of these together informally. And we're just going to invite some of my friends out and anybody else that wants to show up. And we did it at a preserve at Blue Horizon in Randleman, North Carolina. It was actually 22, but it was like last hunting season. And we had a ball. We just had a good time, but it was thrown together on a shoestring. I mean, this event looks like the big leagues compared to that, and this one wasn't super.
It was still blue collar, grassroots.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have a wonderful venue. We're here at H. Cooper Black Field Trial Grounds in South Carolina, and it's great facilities. These guys do a wonderful job. So that added a layer of just, I mean, the ease of use.
You got to keep it down after about 10:30.
That you do. We had a lot of fun at the campsite in the evening as well. But the venue was huge. I mean, it was really nice because we used like 10% of what we had available to us. We're all working close to this nice little clubhouse that we could get together at, and everybody, it gave people more of an opportunity to rub elbows because when they're done with their run, they're just kind of bumping into each other coming back through the area. But to the point of the whole trial, it was just, it was Paul's, kind of just explanation of what he had done, how much he enjoyed it. That definitely triggered something in me. And then, being as involved in the French Brittany community as I am, we've had, it's been since I've been on the board for 6 years. And in that time, there's been a lot of like contentious issues we've dealt with. And I think every breed club and every NAVDA, everybody has this kind of inner politics, and they're exhausting. But what happens and what has always been the threat for us is that we're going to break completely away from the American Brittany community. So right now, if you own a French Brittany in the U.S., you register with the UKC, you're recognized as an Epinal Breton, but you're still registered as a Brittany within the AKC. And so there's been this really big push to split the breeds and have the EB be its own standalone breed, and it especially for people that aren't really involved in the inner workings, it seems like the right move. Because it's like, why wouldn't you want recognition? We get to go and do it and be in the show ring and have our own field trials. But when you've put all the effort into sustaining a breed club that Jake and I have with those guys for so many years, you're like, we don't want to start over. We don't want a new breed. We have a good home. And at the end of the day, there's other arguments. There's all this genetic diversity that we have, maybe potentially if we needed it, that we might be excluding from ourselves. But at the end of the day, what's the benefit to the dog? And then the more I started seeing that, and the more I started realizing, like, man, all we do is get pissed off at each other, fragment and dilute. And it's like, okay, this contingent disagrees with this contingent. Well, we're going our own separate ways. Well, now what was a 20-person club is now 2 10-people clubs, and they're weaker divided than they were together.
Yeah. And
that has happened over and over and over again through our history. And we're in a game that's not growing. I mean, I say game, but we're in a sport and a culture and a way of life that has not gained a ton of steam in the last 50, 60 years, I mean, and I'm talking hunting in general. There's a resurgence, especially in the upland space now, and COVID kind of helped because it kind of drove people back outdoors again and made them appreciate it. But at the end of the day, being a sportsman in this era is not what it was in our grandparents and even our parents' times. And so, I really began to become concerned with this kind of divisive, fragmenting, diluting, isolating, trend that I was seeing. And I was like, man, we just need something where everybody comes together from everywhere else as best we can make it happen. And so I felt like this was a place, it's not sanctioned by any registry. It's not official in any way other than, and none of it is. Nothing, regardless of the registry you work with, no matter what's on any pedigree or any title you get, at the end of the day, it's all worth the paper it's printed on. The only thing that makes it legit is that we agree that it's legit, as a group. And so I thought that same thing. I was like, let's just bring them together, not worry about all the politics. Let's keep all the sanctioning bodies out of the game, and let's just go have fun together and bring and invite everybody. And I think if you look at the crowd we had today, we had people that are active in NAVDA, active in AKC field trials, hunt tests. We had some NUX representatives here today. We had guys that have never done anything and they've hunted really. I've got a couple of guys that came, that I know personally that were like, I would never do any trialing or anything, but they kill more wild birds than most people I know that trial, and they showed up today and did well. And so that's, I think that was the accomplishment as we started. And that's one reason I enjoyed having the BDS involved, is because I think they're kind of a big tent group too. They're not, if you got a retriever and you want to be a member of the BDS, you're welcome. They're not exclusive. And so that was the main push for me.
Yeah. Well, and it was nice here too, having backcountry hunters and anglers and Pheasants Forever, because those are the things we can all get together on, right? Yeah. Those are the things that across the board, there's no one that, shouldn't be in support of. But I think as a gauge of, I noticed as things are winding down and everybody was saying their goodbyes, that that we accomplished the camaraderie portion of it that you wanted to, because the goodbyes took forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think I said the same goodbyes to 20 different people 30 times because nobody wanted to leave.
Yeah.
Everybody had a great time.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to continue to hang out. Everybody's like, oh, but if I don't leave now, I'm gonna. So.
Yeah, it did. It ran late. And I mean, there were a lot of hugs for new people this time around.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the old cronies. I feel like I made a lot of new friends this time, and it was, Yeah,
Yeah.
it was cool.
You nailed the nail on the head. I mean, it sucks because what you said about the hunters fragmenting, that's what we do. Every time there's any kind of disagreement, instead of figuring out a way to work it out, or logic or common sense prevails, everybody just breaks up and goes their own separate way. And at some point, we as a community have to stop doing this whole agree to disagree. Sometimes it's like a bad marriage. Sometimes you just got to work it out and hash it out, because you've been listening. We've talked a few times offline here lately. The other side, they don't fragment like this. There's not anti-squirrel hunters and then anti-bear hunters and then anti-deer hunters. There's just anti-hunters.
Yeah.
And, it's like we are kind of it's like we play right into their hands,
Yeah.
to where we literally fragment into our own little individual camps, and we don't care that the hound dogs are under attack. We don't care that the rough grouse habitat is going under, as long as my bob white quail habitat isn't going under. And it's so frustrating, because it's like we have a million nonprofits for every single subsection, and that's why it's like not. I try not to be a Debbie Downer or negative Nancy for somebody trying to create a movement or do good, but I'm not one to believe that the answer is another nonprofit, and that's all people keep coming at us. It's like we need to figure out a way to come back together, and I think that's again why it was so refreshing for me. Is it kind of proved where it didn't matter the breed, it didn't matter pointing or flushing, it didn't matter what your experience level was. You just came out here and had a good time. And I think that's why it resonated with everybody, because you don't get that very often in this space anymore.
Yeah, and in the gun dogs, there's only so many guys out there with gun dogs that are doing something. And I think every organization can benefit more by encouraging people to play more than one game.
Yeah.
Because it's the same guys, it's the same money. And I always get a kick out of it, because I'll go to a NAVDA event and I'm the UKC trial guy, and then and then I'm sitting on the board of the CEB and I'm the NAVDA guy.
Yeah. You are the NAVDA guy.
It's like somehow on both sides I'm the opposite thing.
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
So.
And I would love, I think it would be really cool if there were retriever people. I mean, it would be cool if this was like a, some sort of extravaganza where just if you had hounds, doing how many barks per minute can you get on a caged coon in a tree, or, whatever. It just, that to me is it. Like, just bring it in, let's, and I actually had a really good conversation with Phil Bastron, who's he was the PF representative today, PFQF representative. And we talked, he's like, yeah, I mean, these guys, he's like, my best guys that throw the best banquets, it's like they're doing my banquet, and 2 months later they're doing an NWTF banquet, and 2 months later they're doing a DU banquet, and it's the same guys, and that's it. And the same thing with all these games. It's a really small world, and that's good that they're all doing those things. But man, the resources could come back to the center a little bit.
Well, and I mean, if you had everybody that, I mean, even if you don't want, I mean, we can sing Kumbaya all we want, right? Like, I mean, we can preach this all we want. It's still going to be difficult to get everybody to kind of come together under one roof. But even if just the communication channels were open a little bit better, to where something that should bring all of the organizations together, not to beat a dead horse, but I've been talking about this, Forest Service USDA executive order. It spans state lines. It hits on numerous mission statements of all these nonprofits. Nobody spoke about it. Not a single one of them. Nobody actually took the leadership or the charge and actually made a statement. And to me, that's unacceptable. And I have issues with each and every organization. And it's not just one of them. It's not just the bird organizations. It's NWTF. It's Rocky Mountain. Nobody spoke about it. And I'm just sitting here like, it's an election year. It spans the nation. It's a National Forest Service issue. And you heard crickets. And part of me has to wonder if it's because everybody was sitting, it's like that crappy or funny Spider-Man meme on Facebook. Everybody, all the Spider-Mans are pointing at each other. They're all waiting on somebody else to take charge or do something. But I mean, it really comes to the fact that like when something actually really matters that we need to touch on as a community and move our culture forward, nobody's taking the leadership charge. And I think it's because we're so fragmented and everybody's waiting on the other person to do it.
I think that plays a role. I mean, I think there's the same phenomenon happening here that happens in so many other parts of society now, where it's like, there's money and political clout that ends up holding us hostage. We're afraid, we self-censor about things like this because we don't want to piss off the wrong entity, and then it all falls apart. And if that is making us ineffective, then it's time to.
If it's that fragile, then we don't really have anything worth salvaging anyway.
You nailed it. You said that's a very good point. So we're talking about conservation right now, but I mean it's the same stuff in the dogs.
Without a healthy culture, then we have nothing worth conserving.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So.
And I think to bring it back to somebody like Bird Dog Society, they don't have their hands in one cookie jar.
Yeah.
Right. It truly is the common thread amongst all of us are dogs. Yeah. Right. Regardless of your game, regardless of what you love to do, they really focus on just bettering the lifestyle of the dog, and that's why I kind of have sided with them and promoted them when and where I can. And if anybody's looking for the organization that is like just trying to make dogs' lives better, fill in the blank with whatever you like to do. That's what they've trying to do. I mean, even just cleaning up barbed wire on public land.
I love
right?
That. I think that's. I mean, because how many times do you do it, right? I mean,
Quinn got nicked by concertina wire in Georgia the other day.
Gracious.
I mean, it's a real thing, at least down here in the South. Like, I don't know if this spans, outside of the Southeast. It's got to, but. Down here, I know it's a problem.
Well, even just the trash piles, the glass bottles, the stuff like that. If you find on every game land, a work day, get together, do something, knock it up, clean up some trash, get the glass up, things like that. And that's what they're good for. And I know for a fact, like if you reach out and say, hey, this is my home area, what can I do?
Yeah.
That's the organization that.
Well, and I think that's where you have both the local level and then the larger level. And I think at the local level, it's really easy to make quick, instant impacts on things, right? But I do think at the federal level, you often have to play the long game.
Sure.
Right? So I think it can be frustrating at times because you see something coming up and you're like, why are people not acting? But I do think that at times we have to give the benefit of the doubt that these organizations do have our best interest at heart. They have no reason not to have our best interest at heart, and that there's at least the possibility that they're going about it in a way where they might lose a battle, but they're trying to win the war.
Absolutely, they could be.
Right.
I would say figure out a way to include your membership a little bit better.
Right.
Communicate it. I mean, I know you can't give away your entire strategy. I get it. Like if we're talking like covert ops, political stuff, right? I get it. Like you can't show your cards, but there's got to be some kind of way that you communicate to people like, hey, you may not. Just trust us.
We're on it.
Yeah, we're on it.
Right.
And I think that's the issue is because I do know that some organizations have tried saying that, but then we never see or hear follow-up. And so it's kind of like the boy cries wolf to where now they say it and it kind of falls on deaf ears. It's like, oh, yeah, we've heard that before.
Well, and I'll tell you another thing. Being from the Southeast, and you know where I'm headed.
Yeah.
Being from the Southeast, in being a bird hunter, and we have a very strong bird hunting culture. We have a very strong bird dog culture. We have very few birds, and we have very little resources available to do anything about it. You can't, you can cut all you want, but you can't reverse development. And so we are where we are with that. We have basically a running megalopolis from DC to Miami. And that's who we are now.
Yeah.
And so everything is on the periphery of that. But that being said, if you're from the Southeast, you feel like the redheaded stepchild of,
100%.
of the conservation movement.
See, you said that we have a healthy bird dog culture. I would say that we have a healthy bird dog tradition, but we
Yes.
no longer have a healthy bird dog culture.
You're probably right. But then it makes it that much harder to forgive anything
Exactly.
because we've been throwing money at stuff forever, and we haven't seen
and
much
it just
happen.
goes up north, out west,
Yeah.
and you know, not to bang the drum, but I really think that like people that don't live in the Southeast, and let's face it, there's really nobody in the bird dog culture that, you know, influencer wise, social media wise, organization wise, that really shines a light on the issues we have in the Southeast. Like, you know, I talk about it, and I travel the country, and I tell everybody, and everybody's like, oh yeah, it must suck to have to work that hard for birds. I'm like, I don't think you get it. I really don't think that you understand just how hard it is to do what we love to do when you live in the Southeast. And everybody can say, we'll move, you know, we'll travel more. And it's like, it's easy for people to just say that. I don't know.
I mean, but I still also and I don't want to just have it be a bitch fest because, you know, since I've had a kid in the last 4 years, I have
as well
fallen back in love with hunting at home.
Yeah.
You know, and I've kind of matured like in that normal way where we go from caring as much about how many birds what our flush counts are for the day. It's still fun.
Yeah.
Still enjoy it when you have those good days. But the days that I do go out and get skunked hurt a lot less now than they did 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You know, I mean, like now I'm very appreciative of just being, you know, upright and having the ability to be out there and the sense of place gets stronger and stronger with my age, you know, and so, you know, it's not all bad.
No.
And there's room for improvement.
There's spotlights. I mean, you work for it, you find your little pockets, but it's getting harder and harder. I mean,
Sure.
You and I both have lost what hot spots we have in hunting for a while, and it is challenging, and I don't want it to be a big gripe fest, you know, woe is me, you know, poor me, I can't go find birds, but I think it is, you know, this spans the entire country. Like, I think even up north, even out west, there are signs of, even when on the good years, the good years still don't measure up to the good years a decade ago. And just because the decline is not as sharp or as noticeable in those areas, it's still there. And I would argue, I think that everybody wants to put this in the terms of we lose hunters, right? I would argue that we're losing favorability in public perception faster than we're losing hunters. And to me, I think in the grand scheme of things, that's a much more relevant issue that, once again, because we're so fragmented, us as a community, we can't combat that in a healthy way, in a healthy manner, to at least curb that decline. And I think that that's something that we have to figure out, is how do we get out of our echo chamber? You know, instead of any of the people that really care about conservation, we're just talking to each other. You know, we have to figure out how to start getting our voices and our opinions and our thoughts out into the public, to where we may not change the mind of the anti fill in the blank, but the person that's sitting on the fence that's undecided, they haven't heard our side. And they have to start hearing our side before they only hear the anti side and automatically go there, because we have the burden of explaining the science. They have the convenience of just appealing to an emotional plea, right? So they have an easier way to make their point. We have to explain everything, so we automatically have a higher burden than they do.
And some of that, I do think that there's some movement in the right direction. They're good. We have some good things going right now. I mean, something as simple as, you know, there's hunting in popular culture, I would say better, at least more accessible now than it was in the past. Maybe not as prevalent as it has been in the past. You know, everybody used to have a public access show where you had the local sportsman celebrity. Yeah. You know, and now we have Steve Rinella. You know what I mean? So, and there are people out there, they're trying, and you know, maybe we all just need to figure TikTok out or something. You know, I don't.
But it goes against our natural judgment. And, you know, the average hunter doesn't. they appreciate their solitude. They appreciate their time afield with just their dogs and their quiet. You know, the average hunter doesn't want to be on social media.
They're
and
doing it
this.
to avoid conflict, not to get into it.
Right. Yeah. It's their escape. Right.
Right.
And then you also within the same organization, you're talking to people that there are some people within our community that will go way out of their way just to snipe your spot. If you post a picture, I mean, there's people like stealing geotags off of people's pictures that they put on Facebook. Like I've talked to people, they're like, I will only post a picture after screenshotting it so they don't get the geotag information. Right. I'm like, this is like, again, back to our own community. And like, it's like, how do you fix this? And, you know, we've had a number of awesome discussions this entire weekend spanning, you know, from NAVDA to hunting to conservation and everything. And you brought up a couple good questions to where at some point, like whichever community you're in, is it an organizational problem or is it a people problem? Right. And the people problem, if we can't police our own and we can't even say our opinions out loud and discuss things without just getting bombarded by, you know, just, yeah, I yell louder than you, it's going to be hard to address any of the concerns that we really need to as a community.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting because I think as we're getting past the negative connotation with so-called trophy hunters, we're entering this realm in which I like to call it like Facebook trophy hunters, right? So now we're starting to get a group that cares more about being able to have the Instagram picture or the Facebook post with all the likes than truly loving the sport. And so it's changed in that realm. It's no longer what I might be hanging on my wall as much as it is what I'm putting on my wall. Yeah, Facebook wall or page.
That's a great point. And I think it's easy. You know, I mean, as somebody that, you know, I don't think I would be a regular social media user without having to worry about my business, but I know that I'm subject to the, you know, dopaminergic reward systems that occur with that.
I want to point out that there's a big difference between the people that are posting something proud of their dog, proud of what they've accomplished, proud of going out there and doing that and wanting to share it for their buddies to see, and the people that go out there for that.
Sure.
Go out there with the, I just need to get this shot so that, you know, I get the likes, I get the...
But I think it is, I mean, I think it's so... I mean, I think we're fragile, and I think we are subject to that. And I agree. I think there's a distinction, but I don't want to demonize people that are feeling those feelings, because I look at, you know, we're lucky, man, that we're all, you know, a kind of a generation of the guys coming up and young ladies coming up behind us that are, I mean, their worlds are really intersecting with a digital, you know.
Oh, they're talking about, you know, brain implants now. Like, I mean, it's some of the stuff like Elon Musk is where I'm like, yo, have y'all seen The Terminator? Like, has anybody watched a sci-fi movie in decades?
But I mean, it's all this stuff is, and I mean, and I'm a user of this technology, and I like it. I enjoy it.
We all benefit from it in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but I mean, man, I look at, gosh.
Right, but and often our intent can be different than the perception, right? Yeah. So it's like a lot of how this is perceived by the non-hunter is way different than how, like, you know, I see, you know, Nick throw something up on Instagram or you throw something up on Instagram. I'm like, oh, he had a great weekend. Like, you know, I know that after talking to you for the past 3 weeks that you struggled your butt off, and now you finally made it happen this weekend.
And that's why it feels so good. And I want to put the good thing up, right?
You're proud to put the good thing up. And, you know, I think that's one of the neat things, too, is that or something I think we can all do better is posting the failures as much as the triumphs, and say, you know, post a picture of just, you and your tired butt dog on the tailgate saying like, you know what,
we
hit it hard and we got skunked, but to me that's not a failure. That's still a great day in the field, and I saw this, and nature rewarded me in this way and in that way, even though it might not have rewarded me with a bird in the bag that day.
And the social media, I know there's a lot of people out there that just say no grip and grins, no tailgate pictures, none at all, and I can understand that. I can, but if we're trying to change the public perception or at least get them okay with what we do, I don't know if quote unquote censorship helps with that. Like, they're not seeing the real thing, right? And we do take pride of a good day earned.
We
right?
should not be apologetic.
We should not be apologetic
for what we do and what we love.
And then this is where it gets complicated, because there are some people that don't think about the image. Like, they're trying to be cute or funny, and it's hard to tell somebody like, this is America, freedom of speech, post what you want, but at the same time, like, maybe don't take a picture with a duck hanging from your mouth. Don't pose with a picture of a bunch of quail while you sit on top of them laid out like a pinup girl. Like, it's not that funny. I mean, you may like it. If you do, more power to you. But like, that's the type of stuff I'm like, all right, you're not posting from a sense of pride of like, man, we earned these birds. You're posting from a give me likes and messages standpoint.
Well, and I think that's something we could do. That we could challenge ourselves and we could challenge our community to number one, like, one thing I've always said this, and I tell my clients this, it's a big deal to me. Like, if you've got hunting season, I want you hunting, and I want you hunting with your dog. And and for the most part, and we're not all like this, once we begin to advance into places where we're actually holding our hunting dogs accountable, it's different. But I think way too many people that are getting into it with their hunting dogs, especially if they're pursuing wild birds, are thinking about having, attaining a new level of perfection in their bird work. And what I would rather them do is just gain some experience with their dog and let their dog gain some exposure and experience out there. And so my challenge is always hide your transmitter. Like, if you've got a zipper pouch on your game bag, hide your transmitter. And another thing we could all be doing is hide your cell phone. Yeah. But you just, take it with you. You need to have it. I turn my location on. My wife's into that. If you got your Garmin in reach, whatever. I mean, in this day and age, we have the technology to be better prepared, to be safer, to do all that. So by all means, have it on your person.
Peace of mind.
Just put it somewhere it's inconvenient to get to for a second.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you're bird hunting and you're scrolling through an Instagram feed while you're bird hunting, you are robbing yourself of moments. Of being present in that moment. And so, and I mean, and I'm telling myself that as much as I'm telling anybody else that. This is not me admonishing the public. This is me saying, Grayson, you got to put it away sometime too, and and so we have that. And then it goes to what Jake said, which is, hey, if you're going to use social, and you should be free to, and you should be proud if you accomplish something, tell the whole story.
Right.
Because there's always more than the grip and grin. There's always more than the tailgate shot. You're proud of that because it's not freaking easy.
Maybe instead of being like, scratched out my limit today, or I got my limit in 2.5 hours, tell us a story. Like, how'd your dog handle them? Tell us about, 3 days starting out this trip. Every day I learned a little bit that led to this, whatever.
And I can tell you from years and years of sitting around campfires telling gun dog stories.
Yeah.
No one cares about the good ones.
No, and I mean,
eyes glaze over. Yeah. I mean, the gotaways, the screwed ups, the what did you just do? The missed birds. They're always.
But that's a good
story.
point, because while we're sitting around campfire, and we've all been there, we're like, oh man, like I was a moron this day, like I screwed up so bad, and somebody's like, oh, I can relate to that. You start putting that out. There's so many people on social media that just are so quick to bash them, and it's just like,
and it is that's the horrible thing, right? It's like we're so quick and happy, like we that's what we mostly do as friends. We throw the bad stories out there because we all laugh, because we've all been there, but nobody wants to throw that out on social media because they want either this person to think better of them,
validation,
they want,
but
they
I do
validation.
think, I've learned this too. Like, I have opened myself to the public, with a podcast and with a heavy social presence. And what I've really found is honestly, the more vulnerable, the more real I am, the more people appreciate it.
Yeah.
And you're going to get people that don't, and you have to learn to kind of filter that stuff. But there's people that are desperate for some real out there because they're fed bullshit all day long. And a fake narrative or a false front, and the ego is everything, and everybody's seeking validation when you're not. It's really refreshing to people, and it appeals to them,
And it's like if you're putting a facade up in front of people just because of fear, how they're going to perceive you or think of you or whatever, they're not seeing the real you anyway. That's so right. It's like then you're just you're stuck in this kind of fake image of yourself, and it's I don't know, because it is, I've never really like changed my face on social media, but I'm not really active on social media. It's like I post like an episode announcement, right? But here lately on the podcast, I've been kind of letting some opinions out a little bit more. And to your point, the people that have been receptive, it's like exponentially more than the people that are against it. And there's something freeing about that. And people do recognize authenticity. I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but they really do.
Well, but it's got to be real.
Yeah, right.
And I think what most people, the same people that would disagree with you and stop listening to your podcast is the wrong crowd anyway. Like you give an opinion, that's fine. It's your opinion. And my gut is you're open to someone contradicting your opinion and saying, let's have the discussion. Like, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, and I think the trial, to kind of bring it full circle here, that's at the end of the day, I had a lot of real conversations this weekend, and we had, what I love about the venue is the campsite right here. And having, we had the kind of core crew that I knew I was going to be with, and then we got a lot of extras that became involved, and we had some just straight up cutting up, and then we had some very, deep conversations, and this is one of them. And this is stuff that needs to be had, and this is a great place for it. And
well, these are the real conversations, and this is the type of stuff that I was referring to a few weeks ago when I'm like, I want to start bringing these conversations that I have around the campfire, around the entire country, bird season, training grounds, or whatever. I want to start putting them out to everybody, because these are the conversations that the world doesn't typically hear. We do these podcasts, we do these YouTube videos or whatever. But I've yet to actually see consistently those conversations that we really have around the campfire come out to everybody. Somebody might do a tailgate talk or campfire talk or whatever they call it. And it's just like you can still tell that it's
still too choreographed.
It's still filtered, right?
Filtered,
and we're not going to come on here and show everybody the conversation after a half a cooler of beer, but at the same time, I think that it goes back to us telling our stories better and really letting people into some of the behind the curtain conversations that not everybody who doesn't come out to these type of events are really privy to.
And if we're not willing to confront the criticisms within our groups, how are we ever going to confront the criticisms outside of our groups?
And that's where I'm coming from. Yeah.
I feel like this country in a whole is having a huge time having discussions on things that they disagree on, and being able to respect that you were brought up a different way I was, and you have a different set of experiences, and it doesn't make my thoughts right or your thoughts wrong or vice versa. We're all a product of our upbringings, our experiences, and so we're going to bring different views. And if, and I saw it a lot this weekend, which was neat, is we have a mutual respect.
Yeah.
We can sit here and we can disagree, and we can even occasionally maybe, slam a fist on the table and get but still we walk out of here toasting and saying, love you, brother, see you next weekend.
And that's, we say it every time we get together. You and I, we have such different brains. We truly do. And so our approaches to training, we're both deeply passionate about the training of dogs. And I have more fun training with you because of that reason. And so it would be easy if you and I, if only thing we did was interact on Facebook via the opinions we put out there, or Instagram or whatever, and realize that all we did was disagree, we could develop some sort of kind of hatred for each other, but when we get in a physical space together, there's nothing, and I can remember this, I can remember my old man saying, you never give somebody bad news over the phone. You go find them, you look them in the face, and it's like, if you need to you want to ask me for money, you come find me. You need to, you want something, and always remember that. Look somebody in the eye, and there's something that, we have this ability to communicate so efficiently now, from a distance. But we have suffered so deeply in our interpersonal communication, and we got to get people coming back together. And COVID hurt us so bad for this, but it's time, bringing, it just comes back to that trend, the theme of big tent, everybody come together. And I mean in person. Get to the events. If you're, if you're into NAVDA and you don't make it to the invitational, go to the invitational.
Yeah, go volunteer.
Go volunteer, or just go be a spectator. Learn what it's like. Then learn, if you're not comfortable enough in a social environment, ease yourself into them and get there, man, because we're losing something as a society in general. We talked about this at the campfire last night, or sometime today. I can't remember when, but how often I interact with younger people that don't make eye contact.
Yeah.
Or and things like that. And so it's not just in our community, but we can help deal with it in our community.
It seems like the more communication channels we have, the more disconnected we become.
Absolutely.
And it's like through so many of these channels, it's like we've kind of lost the entire reasoning for developing those channels to begin with. And to your point, we're all just as guilty. We all fall victim to the same exact algorithms, the same exact dopamine releases, all of that junk. But it's just we can't start improving it until we can all recognize it and take ownership of it.
The trouble is all of these channels are one-line channels.
Yeah.
And so instead of actually stimulating conversation and debate, everybody just tries to get the zinger in there.
Yep.
It is the reason I'm not on Facebook.
Yeah.
Because I would see something, it would trigger me to respond with something that was completely
and
not
it's
constructive.
so satisfying to hit them with the zinger, dude. I love it. I get it.
But it would be completely not constructive. I would just create a bunch of enemies, and it just isn't worth it. But and the truth is that in almost any of these situations, we have more in common than we don't.
Absolutely.
But
And
it's so much easier to focus on the things that we don't have in common than to focus on the ones we do.
Yep.
And the way our brains work, the evolution of our brains is to defend ourselves.
Yeah.
So the second I have put an opinion out there, I'll die on the cross for that opinion instead of taking 2 seconds to say,
reframe it.
wait a minute, let me just actually listen to you and listen to you and not just automatically be already coming up with my next line to defend myself, but say, okay, have I thought about that? And if everybody would take one deep breath or wait until the next morning before they were going to post something and do a little research and actually stimulate conversation instead of stimulate debate.
Yeah.
I
And
think you
that's
could move
it.
forward.
I think that's it, man. I mean, this is combating camping off.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea. And it's just, one little thing, one little event wasn't even that big, but it could start something. And so I that's a challenge to everybody listening, is to get out there and get in person with people. Maybe put the phone down when you feel like you're needing to defend your position, and go find somebody to talk with in person.
It's myself, I was having a hard time. As much as I try and stay inactive on social media, at least in comparison or relative to other platforms, if you will. Instagram was turning into a problem for me. I went and bought a paid app that controls access, and I'm only allowed access to Instagram this amount of time per week or whatever. And I tell you what, man, it's done more for just my mental health, if you will. That kind of gets thrown around a lot, but just feeling anxious, in the past month and a half, 2 months that I've had that on my phone, it's just been awesome. It's just I don't even deal with it. I almost forget that Instagram is a real thing.
No, it's not. You know what I mean?
Let's yeah.
And I'm not sure if we're heading down a side road here, but 2 years ago, I got invited up to a camp in the Adirondacks. It's completely secluded, no electricity, no anything. A friend of mine invited. I took Blakey, my youngest daughter, with me. And it was a mixed bag of people. And we are in a cabin on the side of the lake with no TV, no electricity, no cell phone chargers, no anything, shut it all off. And, it doesn't take long before you start to have discussions, and immediately, people are learning I'm a hunter. Like, that's, I'm a dog trainer, I'm a hunter, I'm this. And I had multiple people there that walked into that weekend as, and it's almost like you can't get kicked off the island. So don't be too combative, because you're spending the rest of the week with these people, right? But it forced me and them to sit on, and some of these were several day bits and piece conversations, but both to listen to them to listen to me articulate why I'm a hunter, why I'm bringing my kids up, and understanding hunting and understanding where their food comes and that aspect of it. And, I've said that it's not about turning those people into hunters. It's never gonna. It's not likely to happen.
Just be okay with me hunting.
But just understanding why I do it. It's not a bloodlust. I'm not a hunter because I want to go out there and kill things. I'm a hunter because it's how I connect with nature. It's my spiritual space. It's and now getting to do that with my girls. It's become a super spiritual space for me, and something that if we lost the rights and opportunities to do this, I would struggle with really how to cope with that.
Yeah, like mental health.
It's that important to me in my lifestyle.
It's the same, and I had this conversation while I was here at this event. As I was standing in the woods one day this year, and I thought about it, and I had my phone zipped up in my game bag, and I was like, minus the ability to engage technology to get myself out of a predicament right now, I've got a lot more in common with some Pleistocene era, dude in a loincloth, looking for shelter than I do most people in some sort of, proximity to me in this moment, whoever's out there at their computer in their cubicle today, and I think that feeling, being able to have that feeling every once in a while, and just remembering I'm a human, like that's a feeling I have in the woods everyone, and I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm a part of the natural cycle of the earth and of the universe, and I have those moments when I'm in the woods, and I don't have them a lot when I'm not.
Yeah, you start to realize just how small you are when you're out in just an unknown place, especially if you put the phone away. You're not constantly looking at Onyx just because you have a pre-made tracker route. Yeah. Like it's just like go out there and truly kind of get lost with your dog. And to your point, Jake, like have the conversations with people. A few months ago, I was talking about an interaction I had with a guy in a grocery store when I was in the UP in Michigan. I was in between hunts. I didn't want to stop and talk to the guy. Like I was in the grocery store to get one thing and get out of there and get back in the woods. But he saw the dog box in the back of the truck, and he saw me walk in.
Starter of many conversations. The dog box
right? And he waved me down, and he was telling me, once upon a time how his family had dogs, but it's just he had concerns with hunting now, and more specifically the amount of non-resident hunters coming up to the UP and all this stuff, and it's just like it would have been too easy for me to be like, oh, well, agree to disagree, I'm going hunting, right? Like F you, I'm going hunting. No, I stopped. I ended up talking to the dude for like 45-50 minutes, and it really opened his eyes to, I'm telling him how everything works, everything from the dollars raised through Pittman Robertson, the non-resident hunters coming through here. It's like all this stuff. And it was just like, I have no idea. I'm like, because nobody tells those people, even people today. One of my questions, yesterday and today, everybody that ran under my course at some point, whether it was yesterday or their first time with me today, I would ask them the Pittman-Robertson question. Can you name the excise tax? You know how many people got it right between yesterday and today? Two. Two people. And both of those people didn't even get the name correct. Like, it was just close enough for me. Yeah, I got it. And then you correct them. And it's not to pick on them, but they are in our community. And if they don't even get the name correct, how are they going to convey that across the Thanksgiving dinner table to family that, to your point, Jake, like, I don't get why you do what you do. I have those people in my family. Everybody has that.
It's just so easy to be reactive in those situations, and really that only ever furthers the divide.
Yeah.
It makes everybody get defensive. If, I've tried to challenge myself to be. I was always so looking for the argument. I mean, and a lot of times in a good way, but like
Sure.
looking for the argument and looking to win the argument instead of learn from the discussion, right?
Yeah.
And so, I guess, can I say that I'm aging? I guess, yeah. I was hoping it wasn't happening, but I'm starting to feel it now. Yeah. And so as I've started to get older and more mature, like I've learned that it's to learn from the discussions. It's not to win an argument. It's not to it's not just to be right. It's to get it right. We see that's actually a NAVDA term that we use. It's not about you being right, it's about getting the right score. And sometimes that means you're wrong or you have to look at things in a different light and challenging yourself to do that, because that's the only way we're going to connect. I mean, if you fight force with force, we're never going to connect with the people that see it different.
You have, like I said, you've done a wonderful job of influencing me in such a way that makes me appreciate NAVDA, which was a struggle for me, because my brain doesn't operate that way. I don't see the data collection. I don't understand sometimes that I'm not here to win. I'm here to actually find out about my dog, right, how it compares to other dogs. And it's a wonderful utility in that regard. But when we get back to that thing, it's like the argument's not about winning, but there is a usefulness in rhetoric and sitting down, but I think the more we remove ourselves from one another technologically, we lose the value of an argument. And if we can sit across the table from each other and argue, and you can see my facial expressions and read my body language, and we can empathize with each other, those are the things that are lost when we're doing that through the internet.
Right.
And so there's a ton of value in a good old-fashioned sporty argument when you're in the same room with the person. But when you're doing it, when you're getting your zingers in on Facebook and you're trumping that, that's all the important, all the good, the usefulness is lost. And we don't get to make the progress that I think we do. And that, I think we're talking to some degree in circles now, saying the same thing, but it's so important. And I think it's really important for people to hear that are listening to this. You got to be engaging.
Yeah, you can do way more for hunting heritage by getting across the table with somebody that isn't a hunter or maybe doesn't even know where they stand.
Yeah,
and facilitating facilitating a discussion.
Back to my point, the people on the fence that haven't heard the arguments yet, and that's what it's so important to take that time. If you have the opportunity, make your voice heard and get it out there. But you also have to be aware of you have to know the right names. You have to actually think, why am I hunting?
Right.
Am I doing it? Again, to kind of repeat ourselves, am I doing it for the gram, or am I really doing it for the dog? Am I really doing it because I enjoy it? Because I think there's a lot of people that get into hunting because it sounds good. Maybe they heard it on, Fill in the Blank podcast, Joe Rogan, whatever, and they get into it like, man, this is pretty hard.
And it's important the empathy is so important when you're talking to that other person and you're trying so hard to win them to your way of thinking, recognizing that may never happen, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And even if they don't walk away satisfied, and you don't walk away satisfied, That's okay. But, but being willing to not alienate those people or ostracize those people, make them recognize that you're not doing it because you're some sort of counter to you're not running contrary to their culture. You're just trying to live in your own thing, and you hope that they could understand that and empathize with you as well.
Live and let live.
Yeah.
Right. And to kind of bring it full circle, we kind of went off a big rabbit hole here, but that kind of goes back to why I asked you the question, like what motivated you to try something new and different? And I think that's where we're at as a culture, the bird dog culture. We have to start thinking of new ideas. Okay, we can't just keep relying on the same thing that's been 20, 30, 40 years. And it's hard because we're kind of a traditional niche within the hunting community. We all love our traditions. We love our hobbies. We love the 50, 60, 70-year-old literature. We love all the things that make up upland. But you got to ask yourselves, all of the stuff that we've been trying for the past 4 or 5 decades.
Well, we can do traditional things in a modern way.
Exactly. and let's start trying to put a fresh new thing on it. And I'm not going to say every change, everything new is good, right? But we're never going to develop the new thing without having the courage to try new things and fall flat on our face. You could have done this St Huberts trial last year. It would have been a one-off. Nobody would have remembered it, right? It has the potential now. I hope Bird Dog Society takes it to the next level and continues doing it, because I think there's value in this. But, to your point, last year it was a little more grassroots. This year it grew. Hopefully, next year it grows, but for the right reasons. We don't lose the actual spirit of the event. But, it's like I encourage everybody, come up with fresh new ideas. Let's not just keep continuing to do the thing. Don't do just an annual banquet because you've always done an annual banquet. If there's a rhyme and reason for it, sure. Don't just do a youth hunt because you've always done it. Expand it. How can you make it grow? How can you make it different? Change it up, freshen it up a little bit.
And don't be afraid to release it into the world. I think the thing about St. Huberts that I like, and I don't want it. I want it. I do. I mean, we're all self-serving to some degree. This is how it works. I love the fact that my fingerprints are on it, but what's as exciting to me is how do I remove myself from this thing? How do I build it in such a way that if I threw it out there and it became this huge phenomenon, that the spirit remained the same? And it's just saying hey man, that's the only thing that matters about this. If this just turns into another field trial, who gives a shit?
Right.
Then
there's plenty of them out there.
It's not worth doing it, and I don't want it to succeed if that's what happens. But if it becomes a thing that facilitates all the stuff we've talked about for the last hour,
yeah,
then that's what I want it to be self-perpetuating. And I don't want it to be me being some sort of benevolent dictator saying you got to be nice to each other. It just needs to be that thing.
And you don't have to have that 10-year plan to start it.
No.
You have to be okay.
I couldn't.
You have to be okay trying to do the St. Guyer's trial and it falling flat on your face. This might be the last iteration of it, right? Yeah. But hey, at least we tried. We tried something new and different, right?
And we had fun today.
Absolutely.
And that, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters, right? Because the next one doesn't matter if today didn't happen the way we needed it to, right? And so, you gotta be, that's the living in the present, living in the moment, and saying okay, I gotta do this day right. And then the next day we'll worry about whatever's going to happen tomorrow. And that was the idea with the trial. And I feel like it did. I feel like it went off right, and it can be better. But if it's not, then it doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know we went down some fun rabbit holes here, but I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed this weekend, Jake. This was the first time we got to meet each other and get to know each other.
Awesome.
And it was a blast. I look forward to future conversations. We've covered a number of them. They're we're going to circle back on this, Grayson. It's always a pleasure
catching up with you. We got your next year's worth of podcasts.
Right. You got to cover this. You got to cover this. But yeah, I mean, it was a very rewarding weekend. I'm glad I could be a part of it, and I appreciate you just asking me, and I think I speak for Jake on that as well. It was a blast, and whether it turns into the St. Guyer's trial or not, it was fun just trying something new and different.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm proud of it. I'm happy with the way it went, and and I think my intuitions were right, that it was just picking the right people and sitting back and letting it play out. So thank you guys very much for being there and making that kind of a reality for me.
All right, Jake, we'll have you back on, and we'll cover a real training topic
Cool.
at some point.
To it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.